Good evening, Trinidad and Tobago. Good evening to the followers of Plain Talk all around the world. Good evening, Professor Emeritus Patrick Watson. Thank you for joining us again. Good evening.
Good evening, Philip. Good evening to all your viewers.
Well, Professor, I said, Satish, we have to get Professor Watson on the show because you shared a post where you said Moses was correct in his position. You want to defend that for me a little bit? Because I want to ask you one question on that, but I want you to tell me why you think Moses is correct in that position on the sanctions and the treaty.
Well, first of all, I am not speaking to that. I didn't come here to speak to that, but let me put it this way. The position he enunciated was fundamentally the position that was enunciated by Professor Andy Knight. And it has nothing to do with we are not affected, we are ignoring the Rio Treaty. It has to do with the Rio Treaty not being able to be used in the context of the Venezuelan VP coming here. Now, people are going to be differed. They're going to have different views on that. But Andy Knight was very, very clear that using it in that context was an attempt to bully both Venezuela and Trinidad and Tobago into accepting the US position. From that point of view, and it was a cogently argued case put forward by Andy Knight, which you should read, where he enunciated that position, and that is the position that was taken up by Moses today. I saw no fundamental difference in the position taken up by Moses. It's not that he's saying to hell with the Rio Treaty, or I see some people trying to say that because we didn't vote on it, we could ignore it. That is not true. The thing is in the context of VP Delcy Rodriguez, that we are not in any way in breach of the treaty by Delcy Rodriguez coming here, and the way the Rio Treaty is a pact similar to NATO, in fact, where we are bound to defend each other in case of a foreign aggression. The US used the treaty to put this clause into it, which we did vote, we abstained on it. And Andy Knight questions the legality of that position. And I support Minister Moses for two reasons. One, because it is backed up by an expert in the area, who is Professor of International Relations at the University of Alberta, who is a former director of the Institute of International Relations, where he questioned the US's right, legal right and otherwise, to raise the issue of the Rio Treaty in the case of Delcy. We are not ignoring the Rio Treaty. We are saying it is inapplicable. I'm not saying we, that's what the foreign minister said in the case of Delcy, which is precisely the position adopted by Knight. In fact, Knight was so strong on this matter. He said if the US intends to use this to bully people into taking positions like the one on Delcy Rodriguez, we should leave and come out of the Rio Treaty. Incidentally, apart from Trinidad and Tobago, the only other two Caribbean countries who are signatories are the Bahamas and Haiti, nobody else. There are treaties that people entered with. This was first signed in 1947, and it was signed on again in 1967 by a then PNM government. And it is to be used in case we are aggressed. If Guyana should launch a campaign to invade Trinidad and Tobago, we should all gather around to beat back Guyana. If Venezuela should attack us, we should. Venezuela didn't attack anybody. You understand? So there's no breach. There's no reason to invoke the treaty. The US is on shit. That's fundamentally my. Sorry to use that language on your program. And
this is my
and my own position on this is that in this case, and in the case of the whole handling of Venezuela and so on, I recognize great caution in dealing with the USA because they are bad. and they could do your bad things. And they have been known to do your bad things. They do Venezuela some very bad things. So we should be careful how we deal with that bad John. That is true. And it is a bad John that we're dealing with. And
boss,
if...
Because you're piling stuff on the table, and I want to be able to ask you a question in between. Because I appreciate the information that you're giving, and I want to encourage you to continue, but I want to ask you this, right? Are you saying that our running afoul of the treaty specific to Delcy Rodriguez has nothing to do with Fuelgate? And us shipping that?
No. Those are two separate issues as far as I'm concerned.
But both of them running afoul, both of them equally afoul of the...
The U.S. is not raising the issue of fuel when it comes to the breach of the Rio Treaty. They are raising it specifically with respect to the presence of Delcy and maybe one other or two people, I don't know. So what the U.S. is doing, they are not entering into this issue of who is selling fuel to whom and all of that. They are specifically raising the issue, and people who are conflating the issues are causing confusion. Selling the oil is a breach of the U.S. sanctions. U.S. imposed sanctions have no legal binding on us. We are not in any way obliged. We may be very stupid to run against it, given what I told you about the bad John and his ability to inflict serious harm on us. But there is no breach of any law. We could deal with Venezuela. We could deal with Iran if we wish. Iran is dealing with Venezuela now, and I am quite happy for that Venezuela is receiving the much needed gasoline that they are unable to deal. Even they have the most amount of gas in the ground in the world, but because of the U.S. sanctions, they can't do some of these things. They have to get the oil from somewhere else. That is a serious travesty. One of the posts I made on Facebook.
Professor, I don't understand that. Venezuela don't have their own refineries.
The oil is coming to Venezuelan refineries. Yes, they have it, but they are what is
oil reserves in the world, and they have their own refineries. Why they're not just generating their own internal fuel?
But because to go at the oil, you need certain techniques, you need certain expertise, you need this, you need that, you need the other. The sanctions that the U.S. are imposing on them, it's like when you go to Cuba, you probably have never been, but if you have been, you'd see they are driving around in cars that were around before you born. All right.
My grandfather born in Cuba.
All right. So when you could do that with a motor car, and you could think of it, but when it comes to things like the oil refinery and spare parts and things like that, you don't do those kinds of things. You're going to you risk explosion. You risk a lot of harm.
How come Cuba has one of the most successful food processing agriculture models in the world? And why does Cuba have some of the best medical in the world, especially for precision medical like heart and ophthalmology?
Because we have not respected the sanctions against Cuba. And the Americans are these days insisting less on Cuba. In fact, they have stopped insisting on it. It's a long time now, Trinidad and Tobago in particular. Do you know that similar sanctions exist on Cuba? In fact, it's worse, and it's 60 years old. But we have had for years now a healthy trade balance with Cuba. We have been dealing with Cuba on an ongoing basis, and quite correctly so. And the time will come perhaps when the pressure of Venezuela on the United States will attenuate, will disappear a little bit, and they will be less concerned as they are now, as they were. In the case of Obama, he even tried to put things back on even keel with Cuba, but not with Venezuela. They keep going at Venezuela. The U.S., I put up a post the other day where but I supported the position, and it was cogently argued by a young lady that the imposition of U.S. sanctions is equivalent to a terrorist act. Because what it does, it causes the vulnerable in the countries to die. Iran has had some of the most deaths from COVID, and they can be linked directly to the sanctions imposed. And you see, when the U.S. impose sanctions, they themselves can do harm, but they also threaten people around India, China, not to deal with Iran. And big countries like this listen, because they don't want to lose U.S. trade and so on, but they are under no legal obligation to do so. Common sense, economic survival, economic
But
whatever you want,
Professor,
experiencing.
back in time a little bit and tell us what is the genesis of the fallout with America and Venezuela?
Well,
Is it all Chavez?
it had to do with Chavez. Chavez, let me tell you something, and I don't want Venezuela, like other Latin American countries, have been run by an elite. Many of them look something like me, or even of more of higher hue. Let me put it that way. Chavez coming into office with the socialist rhetoric. It's a lot of rhetoric more than anything else. There is some socialist action, but let me say quite categorically, I have never, even under Chavez, said Venezuela is a socialist state. And my support for Venezuela has nothing to do with it being socialist or anything like that. It has to do with it's a sovereign state and they're doing their own thing. Under Chavez, it was clearer. And even under Chavez, they tried to do all kinds of things. They carried out a coup. And in fact, in many respects, they carried out more than one coup that we didn't know about against Chavez. People are trying to make a big difference between Chavez and Maduro. Yes, Chavez was the more fidel kind of person, the kind of person that you'd like. And they don't like Maduro. They contemptuously call him a bus driver and all kinds of things. Let me just, but the fact is, the U.S. has raised an issue with Venezuela because they have lost their privileged position in Venezuela with Venezuela's oil and everything when Chavez came. And the group of people whom Guaido now represents, they are the ones who held sway before. They are the ones who ran the show. And they are the ones who are now recognized by the U.S. and they are trying to put back into power. They're trying to put a privileged elite back into prominence. And that is you ask what is the reason behind it?
It's not the same exact Cuban story.
Yes, yes, it's very similar, except in the case of Cuba, it was worse. In the case of Cuba, it was at a time when they were able to mobilize the entire continent against Cuba. The OAS came into being because of Cuba. That organization, that's a Kennedy imposition. I forget what it was called. I think it was called something like the Alliance of the Americas or something like that before. I can't remember. I'm sure one of your listeners will know what I'm talking about. And then it morphed into the Organization of American States, which nearly everybody has joined now. The fact is, the Americans feel, and this goes back to what is called the Monroe Doctrine. Many people are not even thinking about that Monroe Doctrine. You should go back and just look at it. You probably heard about it. Go back and look at it, where they are fundamentally saying, this is our backyard. Get your hell out of here. This is our place. So they can get through with all kinds of things, make you agree to all kinds of clauses in a treaty, because what you're really thinking about, boy, if I don't do this, I ain't gonna trade, and so on, because they are big and they are bad, and that is their main calling card. They're big and bad. So I was happy that Moses took that position today. And I even said that the man had balls. Don't feel he said that without being told that he could say it. That's the position of the PNM government. And they are not, if they use him as a fall guy, that would be very, very unfortunate. But I think it is the correct position, that this is the advice I have from somebody like Professor Andy Knight and other people, even the other former director, who is usually a very conservative pro-American fella, Anthony Gonzalez. He made a similar position. Why are they trying to use this thing in a context where it cannot be used? And that is the fundamental point that Moses was making today, and it's the point that I support. It's not to say that how people are trying to, because they read the headline and they say, but if you read...
I want to know what you think. And if I can interrupt you for 1 minute to remind the listeners that the WhatsApp number to send questions for Professor Watson is 682-2110. Do not call the number. Send concise questions for Professor Watson, 682-2110. Professor, I need to ask you this. If none of these things were running afoul of the embargo or the sanctions, why all the subterfuge? Why all the lies?
Listen, I answer that same question to a Facebook post. If you living next to a bad John, you living next to, let's say, Dolcedi, he can't do anything now, he dead. And Dolcedi has a certain way, he say, don't play no dub music on this street. He said, don't do this, don't do that. You are going to be very, very careful how you dodge those rules. You don't go and fly in the face of Dolcedi because he ain't afraid to kill you, as you know that he did.
Your argument don't have legs. If that is your argument, what Moses did, they was spit in Cheney face. So your argument, if
no, but look how long it took. Look how long it took. It did not happen right away. They reached the point where they finally get the intellectual backing of Andy Knight. They probably did not have that foot to stand on before. So you have somebody like Andy Knight. You have somebody like Andy Knight. No. You have some. No. I don't care what they do. I ain't holding up no brief for the PNM here. I don't care what damn foolishness they do. Let them take their jamming. But I am going on the point of principle. The point of principle is this. If I try to dodge the US, I will do underhanded things to dodge them. I know that I am running. They wouldn't like me for getting this Venezuelan thing. And by the way, I have no absolute proof that is what they did. Although all the things pointing in that direction. But let's say that it is true that the intention was to get this fuel to Venezuela. There is nothing immoral in that. What the problem is you have a badgeon behind you who will bust your ass if he finds out that you do that. So you try to find a way. And now when you reach the point and you can't hide no more, man, you say, well, to hell with you. This is the situation. I am breaking no treaty by this. But that is not the thing that happened. They are not, the case of the fuel is not what is being questioned here, no, is Delcy. They didn't hide Delcy coming here. They didn't hide Delcy coming here. The fact of the embargo, don't confuse the two things. The oil going to Venezuela and Delcy coming here. One is what the US is saying in breach of the Treaty of Rio. That's the Delcy coming here. Delcy come for whatever she come for. I don't know. I don't know. It's not. If I want to make something very clear. That the PNM would have lied about why does he come here. They let them sort that out themselves. Let them take the blows for that. I'm not getting in that. My own feeling is if Delcy come here to discuss the fuel, they should say Delcy come here to do that.
You are giving them an exit. You are giving them a loophole to exit this by. I'm saying to you,
I am not giving them any exit. Let me make my position clear. I have no problem. I have no problem with us selling oil to Venezuela. None. So let's put that on the table. The only thing that is worrying me,
if us selling oil to Venezuela came with sanctions that damage the Trinidad economy, would you still feel that way?
No, I would say that the PNM was reckless in doing that, but morally, on the grounds that it's legal or not, I did nothing wrong. What I did was upset the badgeon. And that is something that you have to be mindful of. You have to be mindful. You have to. There's no geopolitics. This is U.S. big stick policy. All right? This is the U.S. busting your ass for you to do what they want you to do. I really didn't come here to discuss this tonight, because you're going to get me.
There are few people who could put an interesting spin on what is going on, like you. Now, there are people who may feel that your position is left of left. And I accept that you have your left leanings.
It's not left. No. Don't put no label on it. This is a principle. This is a principle of non-interference in the affairs of a sovereign state. This is a matter of principle. But you are letting me talk like that. I am your guest. You should let me talk. You raised this thing notwithstanding the fact that I didn't want it raised. Now that you have raised it, you're going to let me talk, because everybody who's saying this kind of thing that you say, they are making people believe that God spoke from Mount Sinai when he said, don't deal with Venezuela. And I am not buying into that damn foolishness. I am understanding that Venezuela may have its roguish behavior, But that is not the business of the US to tell us what to do. Fundamentally, that is my position. I am not unmindful of the fact that they could do me serious harm, and I would be very mindful if I were the Prime Minister to deal with that in a different manner.
I would be remiss. We signed on to these treaties with the United States of America, not just to protect us from aggression.
There is no treaty involved. Right. There is no treaty involved with the selling of the fuel and of Delcy coming here.
About that. Not letting me finish my point and making me feel to hear my words. Let me just say this. We signed on, when we signed on in 1947, it wasn't just to protect us from Guyana and other aggressors. We want to benefit from having a close relationship with the United States of America.
No. The treaty is very precise. The treaty is precise.
Professor,
the treaty speaks.
Treaties are precise, but motives for signing treaties don't have to be. And we have benefited tremendously from living in the shadow of the United States.
Tell me how we benefit.
Economically, financially.
We're not living in the shadow of Barbados. Barbados is not a signatory. Barbados is not a signatory of the treaty, and Barbados has benefited.
You told me in our last interview that there's a building wrong this called BP Amoco, and that building determines our economy. Yes or no?
That's BPTT. Yes, you're right. And BP is in the first instance it was a British firm, and now it's an American firm. But our dealings with BP has nothing to do with the dealings with the government of the United States of America. It is the government of the United States of America that is. I have no problem with BP. I have no problem with the people of the United States. I have a problem with those who sit in Washington and make us feel that we must do every blasted thing that they want. That is what I have a problem with. Let me make this thing clear. We are in breach of no treaty, even if we sell that oil to Venezuela. We are in breach of no treaty. We are in breach of no law. We may have broken a rule of common sense and of simple practicality. And Knight has argued, and Moses has since argued, that the coming of Delcy here, you cannot invoke that as a breach of the Rio Treaty. You should read everything that Moses said, and not just the headline.
You yourself said that you don't know why she came. Supposing the Americans do. Supposing the Americans.
That is their business. She has a right to come in our country. I can't tell America who to take into their country. They can't tell me who to take into mine. I am dealing with the vice president of a neighboring country, a friendly neighboring country. You put on some no friend.
Here to talk about COVID-19 when the whole world talking COVID-19 on platforms like this.
Then the PNM, as they are usually, they lie. They lie. And then if they lie, let them deal with their lies. But I am telling you, independently of the lying, independently of the subterfuge, Delcy could come here as our guest.
Do you trust this government right now?
But why are you bringing these extra items? The US is raising the issue of Delcy being here.
Do you trust
the US? I trust you. You want to ask me if I trust the PNM? I don't trust them. You damn well know that. So why are we going in that direction? Yes, sir. I am trying to get a point across, and I hope you listen. This is a point of principle. A point of principle that we can allow the vice president of a friendly neighboring country to come here anytime. Anytime. What she come to do, whether she come to meet a man, is she business? You understand? Yeah. Good. So don't ask me, well, why are you still asking me why she come here? I don't care why she come here. I don't care.
I hear you. And I want to, right? Because I want to follow on from your point, because you've been very clear about your point, right? But you also say, and the reality is the neighborhood you live in, you could call them a badger and a bully, but this is where we live.
They are a badger and a bully. They are a badger and a bully. And I'm telling you something, eh?
Somebody came on this show, David Naked. He came on the show and he said, I have no problem if your choice is to deal with Venezuela, but why the subterfuge? And I find that I agree, because if you find your balls today because Andy Knight told you where your balls were. All of a sudden it is okay. When you were actually making the
And
plans,
there's
it
nothing wrong
wasn't.
with that. There are some that I am dealing with an unprincipled government. If at one point in time they find the balls, I'm glad they find the balls. I prefer that they find it than they lose it forever. I am happy that Moses stand up and say, take this. You understand? I telling you that this is the case. And if they don't want to do something,
You and I boil down because people are saying that we're having a difficult discussion. They don't know the amount of love in this room. So I will say we agree to disagree. Boss, you okay with that?
good, good.
And I'm saying to you also, and I want to be clear because your point and your principal stance is not a wrong point. But I'm saying that on this plate, you can't just put the one thing. There are other things that you have to put that affect the whole meal. And I'm sure you agree with that. And I'll take the conversation on for hours if we try to go into all those
Let,
other.
let's stop the discussion because I don't want to agree to anything that makes me go back in any way on the fundamental position I'm making. That
Principle is
the
clear.
US has
Your
no
principle.
right to tell us who we could bring into our country. They have no right to tell us who we could sell our oil to. Good. That's fundamentally it. I am saying that yes, you could be crazy to not listen to them, but it is they fast and out of place to tell me who to sell my oil to, and they fast and out of place to tell me who to bring
people
here.
who are leaning towards the Stars and Stripes, they would have a different position. And I think
Exactly.
we will.
Let me say
I
one
promise
last thing on this. I'll say one last thing on this. I seen some comments about the democracy and the upholding of democracy. The US is the greatest defender of the most ferocious dictatorships. Not only today, over time, they have installed them, they have put them in place. Chile, right in our region. In the case of British Guyana, they threw out Chedi Jagan. They invade Grenada. They do all kinds of things in Nicaragua, Guatemala, all these places. There's probably no place in Latin America that the US has not interfered with, including Cuba, the Bay of Pigs invasion, and all these. They have set up,
the reason
and at
Delcy
the
came
moment,
Euro. She came to see you.
I keep indicating Delcy could have come to see she's sweet, man. I wish it could have been me. All right, and because she's a nice looking woman. So I don't care why Delcy come here. That's the truth. I understand she went and do some shopping too. I was glad for her. You can't tell me who I could bring into my country. And at first I thought it was a breach of the Rio Treaty, and they ought to have known. When Andy Knight explained this thing, I was happy to hear that because and then Moses has taken it up because I myself didn't understand. I am not the expert, and I don't have attorney general and all them kinds of people, first-in-law.
Spot on, Professor. But I want to ask you because you raise things and nobody's perfect and there will always be bad things. And I'm not an American apologist, but I'm saying in the bigger picture of global politics, especially post-World War II politics that divided the entire globe into two hemispheres, into the Iron Curtain countries and NATO. We in the Western Hemisphere was subject to all manner of machinations as both sides tried to influence internal politics. You're speaking about, and you are rightfully speaking about what you know about American intervention, even what you call American aggression. I can't go into those things in one hour show. But I want to say to you that none of these things are happening in isolation. These are all part of a bigger thing.
No. Hear what I'm saying. For those who feel that the issue in Venezuela, I can't believe people still believe that, that the issue in Venezuela is the one of the wicked Maduro dictatorship. They have a lot of thoughts. What about the wicked Saudi Arabian dictatorship? What about what is going on in Yemen? Who are the biggest defenders of a man who keeps the Palestinian people under subjection and they dying through the COVID and all that? It's America who backs up Israel. It's America who backed up South Africa, who vetoed everything in South Africa, who called Mandela a terrorist. That is the
Boss.
country that you're talking about. And you see,
What do you want to do?
so the issue is not one of defending democracy in Venezuela.
This, and we're gonna put together a panel for this subject. We will move away from this and talk economy. But I wanna say now that we are going to convene a panel to continue this conversation because there are people at your level who want to come and answer you. So we will put that together for a future time, okay?
Sure.
Take a deep breath. Take a deep breath. We're going forward. We want to talk.
Believe me, I am breathing normally.
We want to talk about where we are economically. Does Moodys think we're good or does Moodys think we're bad? What exactly is going on right now? This report, Moodys, this
it's not good, eh? No, I think I told you the last time we spoke. Independently of Modi, in fact, I thought Modi was very, very conservative. Eh? You know what they did? They simply moved us from something called stable to negative. They haven't done anything with us yet, eh? But that normally signals that the next time around, they're going to degrade you.
We all noticed.
It means,
I know that.
It means that our bonds, for instance, the bonds they're giving you and they're hoping to sell there's no junk quality, what the economists call junk bonds. That don't mean they're not good, eh? It means that they're high risk. That's what they are. It means that they think about. I myself continue to have confidence in the government's ability to respect its debt obligations and so on. But Modi and the other one, Standard & Poor's, they have all come. But that is not a surprise, eh? I mean, and anybody who expected otherwise had to be in some kind of la-la land. All the countries of the world are going to be seriously negatively affected by COVID and the surrounding events. And a country like Trinidad and Tobago, doubly so or triply so, because we have oil, which has gone through the floor, I nearly said the ceiling, the floor, all right? And we have nothing else to go with it. The manufacturing sector is in for a rough ride, and I want to speak a little bit about that because of the tourism. I am very fearful of tourism in the Caribbean. I am very fearful. Just today, within the last few days, I saw that a hotel that I would stay in Dominica, in Rosso, the Fort Young, they are laying off people, and when I was there, we nearly didn't get a place because the traffic was so high. Dominica depends a lot on tourism, including cruise ship tourism, because in fact, right from the Fort Young, you could see the cruise ships coming in. I cannot imagine anybody my age going to go on a cruise ship. And if you look at the cruise ship population, they look something like me. Eh? It's kind of retired. You want to carry your wife a tour and so on, but you never get a chance to do it. Young people like you don't go on cruise ship rides. I mean, they may, but it's old people like me who you'll see the principal customer. But I hear that they're saying that the people are buying out tickets. I can't imagine that is true, but I understand that it's young people who are trying to take advantage of low prices. That's fine. They ain't afraid to catch the COVID because they will survive it. My only fear is the damage that they might do, as we were having before we started the discussion today on that matter. So tourism is in a serious problem in the Caribbean. And whereas Trinidad and Tobago's tourism sector is not a big contributor to our well-being, it is indirectly so because the countries of the Caribbean that we deal with depend on tourism, and they depend on tourism to get money to buy our products, the products from our manufacturing sector. Not so worried about our oil, but the products of our manufacturing sector are going to suffer tremendously because everybody in the Caribbean is going to be hit hard. All of us are going to be affected negatively. So that Trinidad and Tobago being downgraded is not unusual because Trinidad and Tobago is probably going to have one of its largest negative growth rates in a long time.
COVID-19 anyway?
We may have been, but it's very difficult to say. My own feeling is a lot of what is happening in the capitalist world now is not only COVID related. COVID has given it a fillip, sorry, all right, that it didn't really want, and has made it very, 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 very bad. COVID has made the situation 10 times as bad. And we in the Caribbean are going to be very, very badly hit, notwithstanding the fact that not many of us are dying, but the countries on whom we depend are being affected very badly by COVID. The oil is going down because they are not producing. And in fact, they're willing to give you oil for free now. That's a bit of a lie, but that, I mean, it's an exaggeration to make the point. And even if tomorrow, and I keep insisting on that, and I think I insisted on it with you already, we are not producing the kind of oil and gas that could get us out of this hole, even if the price goes up to an extent. There we in a real trouble. You trying to take over this country, you're going to be taking over a real mess if and when. In fact, I'm telling you, there's an election to lose. I mean, very, 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 very frank about that. This is an election to lose because I am not sure.
Would allow the government that saw us through 4 years of recession, despite the fact that the globe was enjoying an unprecedented 3.5% global growth. You would lose this election to let them continue digging this hole?
No. I mean, I said that in a way flippantly.
I know what you're saying.
I'd say flippantly, but I am telling you, I mean, I can make this, I feel free to, notwithstanding what you're saying, they are going to do well in this election. And I'm not saying they're going to win, but they will do well. And it's largely because of the way they have handled COVID, notwithstanding what other people say. And they are taking full advantage of that. They are distributing the goods, and they're doing this and they're doing that. They are politicking. They're telling you not to politic, but they're politicking like hell. That's how they are. That you know them to be like that. So yes, but my own feeling is whoever takes over the reins of power, whenever this election is held, they are going to have a hell of a 5 years ahead of them, especially if people promise them the moon and the stars, when the moon and the stars are not to be promised. If anything, they have to be told it bluntly that this is going to be hell. I remember Chambers in 1981 when he realized that he was going to win this election, notwithstanding the showing of the ONR and so on. His intelligence was telling him that they're going to win. He started telling you, in fact, the famous words he used was the fet over. Those were before the elections. The fet over is time to get back to work. He was warning people that the time to come are going to be easy. And so said, so done. In that 5 years of hardship and of taking some of the hard decisions, it's Chambers who started the thing going that the narrow continued. The narrow continued in a way that Chambers didn't continue. And so on. And look what happened to them. You just remember the essence of Dinar. Did Dinar do the wrong things? I don't think so. I didn't like them too much myself, I will tell you. But did they do the wrong things? I don't think so. But look at what happened to them. A coup took place under their watch. A coup that many people, including intelligent people, say, man, kill them. The Calypsos in the following year, all of them is making joke. I remember organizers singing a song, "Po, Po, who is your leader?" It's a big joke. And of course, the debacle in 1991, where they were wiped out of existence, they didn't win a seat. Well, they win the two in Tobago, which really were narrow seats. They were seats that belonged originally to the DAC, and that was traditionally anti-PNM. Tobago is anti-PNM, It's always been anti-PNM.
Probably were original DAC.
Oh yes, no, but even from before, I find it very interesting.
Pamela Nicholson was DAC too, originally.
Yes, yes, of course. She was an Arab person and was DSC. She was in the parliament before. Eh? She and
Yeah, I'm
Robbie
saying
were
it
the
was
two
winning
DSC
with Rob
people.
any, yeah, but I was just making sure that that was DAC she as well.
Yes, no, she was DSC. You thought she was PNM? I mean, she was, you know, you remember all these songs in the Calypso region that used to talk about the woman's difficulty in sleeping and all
Yes,
of that,
yes.
because so they
Uh,
made a mockery of the woman.
but
Yes,
Professor,
so
you things that giving people conniptions on the thread, and I'm following the thread because and they said that they happy you breathing normal, you have them breathing heavy, and they go on the gathering for real. But but the point that everybody raising though, and I want to raise this point with you. Other countries have come from far worse, but put proper things in place to take them long term to a better place. And
that's right.
isn't this the best time now
There
to
is
reboot?
no better. There is no better time. Now is the time. The question is, do we have the balls to do it? And I'm talking about leadership as well. Do you have the balls to do what ought to have been done since 1962 or maybe even 1956? Do we have that I don't know, that desire to make
People,
sure that 50 years from now, we will not be in this same mess. When I won't be here, or 50 years from now, we don't want our grandchildren to be in this mess
see,
that we are in
say
now.
that the PNM handled COVID well when the vast majority of voters, the people who were promised rental assistance, small business assistance, grants, all those promises never materialized.
When
Okay,
when I say handle COVID,
who are the people who are saying that the PNM handled COVID-19 well? The stupid people
yeah,
who in the PNM for the
no,
sun?
I tell you who doing that, The people who win elections, me. I win elections. The PNM diehards and the UNC diehard don't win elections. I win elections. I could decide not to vote. I could decide to vote for the PNM, or I could decide to vote for the UNC. I am not stuck onto one of them. When I make up my mind how I vote in, then you know who is going to win the elections. That is why the NAR had a clean sweep in 1986. That is why the partnership won in 2010, because the people who would normally stay on the lines or vote for a party like the COP on its own voted for the partnership in 2010.
That is
Many of them voted against the PNM,
exactly.
against the PP
Exactly.
in 2015. So
When the
the
when
people
the
who are saying that, the
NAR
people who are
won was
saying that
I will let you go.
the NAR, the NAR won because well, not I personally, but people like me voted for the NAR.
The
They
vast
voted
majority,
in their number.
but
The
still,
PNM got their usual. The PNM
a
got their
hundred
usual 28%. You know, until
thousand people.
2010, in 2010, all these people who like to say that the PNM diehards voted PP in 2010, that is nonsense. In two cases, they actually got more votes than they got in 2007. I think one is in Tobago West and one was San Fernando East, where they got
But
higher
that's the
numbers.
point. And the deciders who came out and voted for the NAR, because I was going to tell you just now, even though the PNM lost 33-3, they still had 186,000 votes.
Exactly. That's what I'm telling you. And that's what I'm telling you. So who wins the elections is
The
me.
deciders are the people
Uh,
who normally don't vote. And right
that's
now,
right. Yeah.
this now here, those people have a special responsibility in this country. Professor, I put to you
Mhm.
that people who normally do not vote, who are traditionally non-aligned to either the PNM or the UNC, or just don't engage process, that 50% or so, those people have a special responsibility to Trinidad and Tobago right now. Because what you're saying, and you need to say it clearer, you know. You need to tell people the way the doctor tells you when you have stage 4 cancer and it's metastasized to the bone, put your affairs in order. That's where we're at. We are Trinidad,
That's true.
put your affairs in order. We're in a bad, bad place. We talking IMF. Like that is how you plan to run a country. Now is not a good time to deal with the IMF because the
But
IMF
that's
will
where
be
we headed,
stretched.
eh?
The
That's where we
IMF
headed, eh?
itself will be
Mm.
stretched for all
Yeah.
countries that suffered COVID-19 economic losses, and you know that.
Yeah, but
Trinidad,
let me I want to say something. We are lucky. This is not 1986. We are lucky that since 1986, no government, I have to compliment all of them, no government has been reckless with our foreign exchange, and some of them have been particularly careful. I like to give credit to the Pandey administration from 1995 in particular. They are the ones who started the Heritage and Civilization Fund. They call it a some revenue stabilization thing, and they started it. The PNM, who for years were refusing to do that, they ended up formalizing it and not doing much with it afterwards. So there was a definite attempt since 1986 by all administrations, including the PNM administrations, to not have us run out of foreign exchange, not have us go into that crunch in 1986 when we had none. Now, we still have, relatively speaking, a large amount. We have gone from a very large amount, from about a 12-month import cover, to about 6 months. I could be wrong here. It could be 6, 7, 5. I really don't know. I haven't seen but we still have a large amount relative. So we are not
that cover,
dying.
does it include our food import bill?
Yes, it does. It does. It's a way of calculating. It's a simple thing that's saying that we are accustomed buying such and such every month. We have enough to buy. If we should get not another cent, we can now buy for another 5 or 6 months. That is how it is saying, and it includes all the food that we buy. I saw Asha Jafid, I think, put up today figure. I think that table is incomplete because not every food item is labeled on that. On that, there is no other food or anything like that. She is very specific about certain kinds of food, but there are other foods and other food items that enter into that calculation. And the food import bill is extremely large. Now, it's not an easy thing to go from importing that kind of quantity of food. I think the figure she quoted is something like $5 billion or something. So I saw, and I said that's an incomplete list. And as far as I can, she normally does her work well. So that I am sure that figure for what she has written there is correct. And you would expect then people would say we could save all that. That is not true. We are not good producers of agricultural goods, and that ain't going to happen overnight. Do you know how much agriculture adds to the GDP of Trinidad and Tobago? The percentage is very, very small, about 4%. Very, very, very small. Agriculture and tourism that we talk so much about as precious little. And it's...
Professor, and I have to ask you this. You're dealing with normal based on what we've accepted as normal.
No, I agree. Don't even go with that. I agree. I am simply saying that to go from A to not having to import $5 billion, that ain't going to happen overnight. That's what I'm trying to tell you.
But it could have happened. It could have happened, Professor.
It could have happened.
Yes, sir. I want to answer this. It could have happened under Pandey. It could have happened under Manning. It could have happened under Kamala. It could have happened under Rowley. You are talking 20 years. 20 years, we could have had a thriving food sector growing long-term crops like avocado and breadfruit and soursop.
we independent for
Because
60 years now. We independent,
okay,
let's say roughly 60 years. So we could
okay,
have been doing that.
but I'm saying the 80s was a slap in the
Uh,
face. The 80s was the
uh,
global wake-up call. Do not build your house on oil and gas. This economy could collapse because
I
of
know
oil
that,
economy.
I think I hear that in my mother's womb, to diversify the economy.
Of course,
Diversify
of
the
course,
economy.
of course. I mean, we
And
could have looked at
nobody
your
ever did
partner. Could have looked at your partner, Lee Kuan Yew. We could have looked at him and see what he was doing in Singapore,
it. Yes.
and he didn't have oil booms.
No, and he didn't have that much. They don't have any real resources in Singapore. And they did very
No,
well. I think I told you this before, but it's there for everybody to see. I'm not too sure how it compared to Trinidad, but Lee Kuan Yew was behind Jamaica, who was the crown and he was the jewel in the crown in Trinidad, in the Caribbean at Jamaica in the early 60s, late 50s. Jamaica was ahead of Singapore, and now Jamaica is way, 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 way behind Singapore. So we did not do well. It is true.
so
In
that
many
is one statement of the year. We
in many respects,
calculated, we calculated
mm,
and total our budgets for a country that just halfway through reached 1.4 million people. We've totaled
mm,
our budgets, and Trinidad has budgeted and spent just under $1 trillion operating this country since 1962. $1,000 billion for to manage a country
yeah, but
like
that's not a
this.
good way to look at it, because
No, but
a dollar
it
in
is
19
because professor, and I want to say this, it is a good way because at any point, any of these things I tell you, if I am wrong, tell me I'm wrong. Trinidad was a net food exporter up to the 70s. Yes or no?
that's not true. We were never really net food. You know who used to be the food basket of Trinidad and Tobago? The island of Tobago. The island of Tobago was under the PNM,
How
rubbed
far
into
from
the ground.
self-sufficient were we?
Or we were,
Prior
you
to
know what we used to
how
export?
far?
We used to export agricultural produce. We used to export sugar, which is an agricultural product. In
May I ask it
my
another way?
childhood,
What
in
food
my
import bill?
childhood, we
What
imported,
was
we
our
imported
import bill?
I can't recall, but we have always were net food importers. In fact, I mean, this is anecdotal. We used to import a lot of our food, or a lot of our staples from Guyana. Rice for sure. There was a time when Guyana, when it was having its troubles with Cheggy Jagan, the same Jagan that I mentioned, we started importing the American rice. That was one of the worst tasting thing that you could ever imagine. We used to import plantain. Williams got vexed with them once for some reason or other and stopped importing the plantain. And Sparrow sang a song about BG plantain. And so now these women complaining about the absence of BG plantain, about the good size and all these kind of things. We have always imported from Grenada the ducks from St. Vincent. When I go, up to now when you go in the market, Trinidadian market, when they'll tell you, this is no local yam, there's Vinci yam. You probably don't go in the market. But I go in the market and I tell you. And
Okay,
I
but
mean,
Professor,
they're very.
I
Go
just
ahead.
and no, but you see, I was going to ask you, right? Because we spent $1 trillion to run the country. We spent $1 trillion doing things that should not have been done. We lost nearly 800 million transporting prisoners. We spend $30,000 a month housing prisoners. We spend $500 million a year on
We did not
desalinated water.
use the money correctly.
No, but we
That
live
is
100,000 times the rainfall we need. We buying desalinated water. Professor, Trinidad and Tobago has been deliberately mismanaged as a cash cow for a rampant contract mafia that has used politics in Trinidad and Tobago to get themselves rich at the expense of everybody else.
and that continues. That continues.
Shouldn't that be the first thing that we fix. Because that contract mafia that thrives under the PNM agency, if we don't fix that, how do we then get full value for our economy?
All right. Yes, you should fix it. And it's all I can tell you is that the experience of other countries is you don't fix that so easily. Eh? I am all in favor of fixing it, but it takes more than one Philip Alexander. And I'll tell you something. Eh? Right around you, you'll have people. If they can't get to you, they will get to other people who will be corrupt and will give in to them. No matter what you do, how you try to dig around it, there are corrupt people. See how Gary talked the other day about the corrupt police service, and these people all over the place. They are all over. They are in the woodwork of the country. You are going to find it extremely difficult to get rid of it, and who knows, they might put out a contract on your life. And very, very simple. It's not that they're afraid to do that either. Because if you start interfering with people's wealth, because that's what you're doing, eh? They will not sit back and allow it. So yes, we have to get rid of it, but I am promising you that it's not going to be so easy. And I'm saying you have to get people behind you, and they have to do it. And you're not, how are you going to undo these entrenched interests? This is something that is, don't get me wrong, eh? I am not throwing up my hand in the air and saying it's impossible. It's not. But the kind of tumultuous activity that will take place in dealing with that, you have to be prepared to handle it. You know, some people handle this thing like a Duterte. You know this man from the Philippines? Where do you know that many Filipinos say that this man, he knows what he's doing? He licking up everybody left, right, and center. Are you prepared to go in that direction? You see, this is where people are going to have to start asking questions. I agree with you fully. So from just knowing that it has to be done, I will like. Who could disagree with that? But those who have benefited,
what all those concerns that you raise, I don't want to say fears, all those concerns that you raise are natural concerns because we live in a country where criminals have benefited and thrived for a long time. So we are coming to break the back of what is ostensibly serious organized crime. That's what we're talking about. Organized crime. Let's also talk about the banking sector, Professor. This is your baby. This is what you understand. I want you to explain to me how our diluted little financial sector generates the billions of profit that it does every year, and yet the economy doesn't have the credit in it to drive small business development that it should have. Why are banks allowed in this closed-off financial sector allowed to not pay interest on depositors' accounts, which is supposed to be the left foot of the banking agreement, the principle of banking? You lend my money for interest.
It's not that they are not allowed to. Eh? The banks operate as a cartel. Everybody knows that, and it's not only in this country. Eh? The banks will not they don't compete for your money on the basis of interest rates and so on. They compete by other means, how you smile at them and all these kinds of things. Banks are not in the business of lending money to entrepreneurs. Banks lend you money when you already in a position where you could do something for them. They will lend you money as a mortgage if you are employed, you're at the university, you're on tenure, you're getting the salary of a young lecturer. They know somewhere along the road you're going to rise to the rank of senior lecturer. They will lend you money because their bet's sure. If I go to them with an idea to make some kind of fancy doubles or something like that, they ain't even listening to me. And if you want a proof of that, go and ask somebody like Lockjack, one of the most successful entrepreneurs in this country. He did not. The banks threw him out of the office when he went for his first loans and so on. Banks are not in the business. Banks are in the business. They are there to make money. And that is why they make the money. So they will try to. And in the case
But
of your, let me,
banks but they could still make money in a competitive environment. They could still make money if we ensured that deposit interest must be paid. That should be regulated by central bank. And all
the banks, the central banks cannot and will not tell banks what rate of interest to charge. That's not the dissuasion that they get in. If the banks don't want your money, you see, you have to understand this. If you start telling the banks that they must, I don't want to give the banks ideas, but they work this out already. They don't need a lot of us to be
if
there.
If you work it out already, I want to talk to you off air because I want to hear what that is. But I'm asking
you see, the banks are now suffering, and for a long time now, from having too much money in the system. Too much money in the system. It's excess liquidity. When you are putting more money into the banks than the bank could have, they can't. If you tell them not to pay interest on that, they pay interest to do what with it? Because nobody borrowing the money.
The movement of money between persons is the fundamentals of what you're a professor of, not so?
Yeah, but I don't understand what you're asking me. Whatever I am is not important. I'm explaining to you how the thing works.
How could you have this much poverty and excess liquidity? Rationalize that for people listening to the show.
I having a lot of money and there being poor people, they have anything to do with one another. That's the system. You go in India. If you want to see real poverty on the streets, go in there. And if you want to see real wealth, go to India. You have people like Tata. I don't know if you know this man who owns some of and he makes these big trucks and trains and so on. He could buy and sell this whole country several times. And yet when you go in India, there are people living in dirt on the streets. I see these little boys and girls without pants sitting down in the dirt in the streets. All of these things, the United States, the richest country in the world, if there's anything the COVID has shown up, is that the inequalities and the inequities in that system are glaring. That's the nature of capitalist society. They don't deal with that. In fact, they depend on that. You have these glaring disparities in wealth because that is how the system functions. The system encourages somebody to accumulate more. Where do you have exceptions to that? You have exceptions to that like in places like Norway, Denmark, and Sweden, where you still have rich people, but they have high taxes and so on.
But you are left-leaning economists, and you know taxation and legislation are the two tools at the government's disposal to encourage the banks to put the money out in the system for lending, to generate small business development. Yes or no? Have we done enough?
No, I'll keep telling you. If you want to encourage, and the government has done some of that in this and other countries, they have these development banks in the country, or the development bank. But there's the Agriculture Development Bank, and there's the other one that Pemberton used to run. I can't remember the name of it.
What's Exim
DFC. Yeah, the Exim Bank is a thing about dealing largely with exports and imports, the financing of it. But all of these institutions are there to encourage development. The Agricultural Development Bank is one, and the DFC, Development Finance Corporation. That's what it's called. And then there's the Caribbean Development Bank that does this kind of thing on a more global basis. But commercial banks are not there for that. Commercial banks, from their very history, they are there to to help you transact your business with one another. And commercial banks are not there to take your money and put it at risk. Because when you lend money, and have no doubt about this, if people think entrepreneurship is just getting money and working with it, it's not true. Entrepreneurship is an expensive business. 99%, I exaggerate, but a lot of entrepreneurial activity ends in failure. Ask Elon Musk about that. They will tell you that. The kinds of financing that is required for that does not come from a bank where Patrick Watson go and put a little 5 cents and he want when he goes back, he get it back in 5 cents. You understand? If anything and the bank busts, I want to have deposit insurance so I can get back my 5 cents. When you want to finance risky activity, that's not for the commercial bank. And understand that. That's a rocket science, you know. The banks have that money. If people want to use that for...
We have unit trusts. Why isn't the government using those institutions to compete for the lowest level?
Again, that's not what the unit trust is. The unit trust was a response to making the poor man... No, to making the poor man invest in stocks and shares. That's what it is, eh? If you, I mean, that's not fully true, but that's a nice way to put it. When you buy a unit, you're really buying, into a company or some government agency or the other. You don't. There's already risky money involved there, because what happens? The unit trust takes your money and they invest it in Massey. They may not. And Massey makes a profit. That's how they manage to pay you and have your unit increasing over time. They ain't taking that and lending it to Patrick Watson to go and experiment with something that he wants to sell, when the probability of Patrick Watson succeeding with that is extremely low. You understand? You need something else for that. You see, and that is what you have to start together. Now,
there's something else that we need. There's something else we need, right? There's something else we need is legislation and taxation that encourages that money to find and take risks for greater return than the banks could give them.
All right, let me ask you something. Who are you going to tax? Who are you going to tax?
Patrick Watson has parked up the $1 billion he's made as a professor all these years. He's parked it up in Republic Bank, and he's getting 2% a year.
Yeah. Patrick Watson, if he's making that kind of money, parking it up in Republic Bank.
Okay, but
Patrick Watson will be investing in shares, investing in property.
For the purposes of my analogy, it's a different Patrick Watson, who's a also. He made $1 billion. Anyway, couldn't the government, via tax requirements, give you tax deferrals that will exceed the 2% you could possibly, 3% you could get from the bank, and give you incentive to...
I will buy the idea that the government can and ought to encourage entrepreneurial activity. I will buy that.
That's my whole question.
And it may not be the way you are saying, but I like the idea that you're putting out, that it is the government's responsibility, and I will buy that one, to make sure that there is a fund that you can finance entrepreneurial activity with the understanding that you're going to fail. No. The problem with this...
I'm going to make sure that we benefit from the knowledge of all talented Patrick Watsons, and we bring them into the conversation, and we manage it from that point of view. Because I don't believe in hand out, I believe in hand up. And I think that we could put controls in place for who we finance, because Amazon.com was clear. Bezos was clear, we're going to lose money for the first 10 years. We're going to lose money. But he is now on target to be the world's first trillionaire. The most successful company in the world's history. COVID-19 made him...
And he just gave away half his money to a wife he divorced.
He gave away half his money. She left at the wrong time. because his own personal net worth just doubled again. And I'm saying to you that it's people with vision. When there was a BlackBerry, I don't know if you understand the telecommunications industry, but when Barack Obama first came to office as president of the United States, BlackBerry, the company, the name is right on the tip of my tongue. The company that was BlackBerry was so high and far away from everybody else, it was almost another technology. And one of the things that made BlackBerry so successful was something called BBM, BlackBerry Messenger. That was
Yeah.
different to everything. It was available once you had a BlackBerry. And a small company created a version of BBM at that time called WhatsApp. It was a small, tiny little company. And at the point in time, the nexus where Apple eclipsed BlackBerry and destroyed it, WhatsApp took off. And that nothing company became $1 billion investment overnight for everybody who put. When you say that not all investments succeed, you're absolutely correct. But the responsibility of those stewarding the investment should be to make sure that they're not investing foolishly. That they
Yeah, but how do
invest
you know
in.
that? You see, this is the problem with entrepreneurship. And this is why I wouldn't want any government interfering in it.
I don't want
The,
to be the government doing it because the government has a history of making a mess of things like this. It has to be driven by private capital.
good.
And private capital in as credit is what makes Silicon Valley work, is what makes it successful. Because without that money, we wouldn't have a Bill Gates and we wouldn't have a Steve Jobs, we wouldn't have WhatsApp, we wouldn't have none of these things. Amazon, all of these things came from dining room tables and garages where
No, that is
private money.
And the point you are making, and I think we have to think it through because it is not, it's how to find this fund of money. Now, let me say something. Over the years, and you have to understand that a lot of the money that you're going to spend in entrepreneurial activity in a country like Trinidad and Tobago will have to be on imported stuff. So you are going to require foreign exchange. When we had the mountains of foreign exchange and we were generating the mountains of foreign exchange, it is we should have been financing entrepreneurship. Now it's going to be extremely difficult in a time when you're trying to hold on to every cent to go and take part in adventures. And this is the problem that you're going to have there. So somebody is going to have to
But there's a
convince
lot of
people
money.
that they must start.
But there's a lot of money
Go
that
ahead.
the government, there's a lot of government, there's a lot of money and a lot of equity that should be taxed that aren't taxed, and there are things that are being taxed that shouldn't be taxed. And I think that we need a taxation overhaul built on
I agree.
not.
I am not sure. I am not sure that taxing is necessarily the answer. Like, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying it is or it is not.
I talk about existing taxation.
Yeah.
40%
What
of
I
the
am,
budget is
what I,
taxation.
what I'm agreeing to is that we should try to finance entrepreneurial activity, and we should find ways of getting that money. It is almost inevitably going to involve something like taxing some source and so on. But I will
I'm
agree with you. I will agree with you that there has to be a fund of substantial size. And not only, I think there must have a certain quality to it, there must be a large component of foreign exchange to it. Because you cannot, 99% of the things you have, I think I explained this to you already.
Instead of using the term fund, how about we use the term avenue of earnings? Because you could earn money on your money two ways: interest or by deferring taxation on the money. Yes?
When I am thinking, I'm not sure if we're speaking of the same thing. Patrick Watson, might have the money to invest and I don't know what to do with it. And what I'm hearing you saying, and I am agreeing to that, is you should find some way to relieve me of my money, not take it, but help me out, give me a little interest or something. So, and you will then use that money to finance entrepreneurial activity with the understanding that you can be taking a tremendous risk.
You,
And
you just wait, but you missed one important point. You're thinking like, I want your money. I don't want your money. I want to give you incentive and encouragement to work your money. I want that to benefit you tremendously.
no, but you
And
want the
that's what
money. I know, and
I
I
want
agree
the
with
money.
you.
I want the money in the
Yeah,
system. I don't want it.
but Patrick Watson must be able, if he is going to have his money go into something that is risky, he has to understand that it's risky. And because if you are taking my money and promising me that you will give me back money on it, but you are using it for risky business, and that risky business boss, you will end up like the man in Clico. Sooner or later, you have no money to give me back. And then you might start doing foolishness like the man in Clico did. What you have to do, the people with money must be convinced in some form or another that that money should be used to go into entrepreneurial activity with some amount of guarantees, but not absolute guarantees. Because when you go into
We have no
yeah,
intention to be reckless. We have no intention to be reckless. None whatsoever.
good, good.
None
But
whatsoever.
you can't go
Because
promising people you can't go promising people that you will. You see what we have to get out of, eh? This is a country apart from the oil. The only owner of foreign exchange is oil and gas. That's a bit of a lie, but it is approximately true. If you are not going to find an alternative to making foreign exchange, you're in serious trouble. Any
okay,
investment in this country
that's
must be
so
looking at getting money from abroad. If you are not going to earn money, entrepreneurial activity and earning foreign exchange in a country like
but,
Trinidad and Tobago cannot be separated.
but I can tell
Any
you,
any activity you want to get involved in has to be foreign exchange earning or
okay, but
foreign exchange.
globally, the largest driver of foreign exchange right now are service-oriented industry.
That is
That's where
true.
the major that's where the
Yes.
major growth is expected, right? Trinidad is
Yes.
perfectly poised. We have semi-skilled labor in all manner of disciplines, easily trained. We just need a plan and a vision to maximize that human resource and give them the opportunity to maximize their
What if
full
I tell
potential.
you? What if I tell you that these service providers are already earning the foreign exchange? They are already earning foreign exchange. You think these people who trained in the oil, in Petrotrin, when they lose their job and so on, where you think they're going? They're in Aberdeen now, or they're in some part of Tanzania, and they earning foreign exchange. Marshall Montano is earning foreign exchange. You think they're bringing back the foreign exchange into this country? The problem is
No,
not just
I'm
earning it.
saying to you, I'm saying to you, create the environment that allows more Marshall Montanos to make foreign exchange, and they may not necessarily have to leave Trinidad to make the foreign exchange. I understand what you're saying by our oil field workers going Aberdeen or wherever, but how about if we had created an environment where they could have maximized that potential here? Those are the conversations we have to have, and I don't think that we could solve the whole economy in this one interview, but you and I have to talk more to drill down to these issues. People have asked
Sure.
me questions, ask you. Somebody said somebody needs to answer this question to debunk this once and for all. Do the Rothschilds own all the central banks?
All I could say is they are extremely rich. I have heard this rumor. I have heard the conspiracy theory, let me put it that way. But I could vouch for you that they are extremely wealthy and they are extremely powerful. Whether they own all, whether they own nine tenths, I don't know, but they are extremely wealthy. I don't know where their tentacles are. That's the truth.
So you've never heard that rumor that they own all the central
All the
banks,
time,
etc.
all the time. I hear it all the
But you
time.
couldn't
Yeah.
answer.
Uh, but I don't know because the very nature of it is that it's very secret. You see, that's
Tell me something. Is it true that 40% of our annual budget is made up of taxation?
Yes, in fact, I don't know.
For income side.
Yeah, no, but I'm assuming you're talking about the income side because the expenditure side can be taxed.
Right.
I don't know what they mean by that, but I think it's close to 100%. Because the largest amount of money we get is from our taxation of the oil companies. You see, and they have all various kinds of taxes. There are the supplementary petroleum tax. They have corporate tax. They have corporate tax on companies and so on. So tax, the way we earn revenue, the revenue is approximated by the amount of tax we get. We also get income from earning interest, like when the Heritage and Civilization Fund money comes in from the interest we own on that. But on an ongoing basis, the governments in general earn money by taxing. So most of the revenue is going to be taxation revenue. It's not only from your income. It's not only from but it's and VAT is a tax. Anytime you think it's and VAT brings a lot of money to the government of Trinidad and Tobago. So taxation. I don't know why that question comes up as a thing. What else would you earn the money from? I mean, I want to know. I know that they are.
We talk about WASA and people say all the time the solution to WASA is not to find more water, it's to keep us from losing the water that is in the system. I find that as an even better example of what we should be doing with our economy and our treasury.
Yeah.
So that we need more money
Have
in
you
it.
must go and speak to Lee Hunt. And I happen to know this because I spent a few years in the regulatory.
Story. I was just saying to you. I didn't want to make this a WASA story. Saying to you that is what we should be saying about our economy, about our treasury, the leaks and the losses, the corruption and misspend and overspend unnecessary.
You're correct, including people who are not paying taxes and so on, who are doing all kinds of things to avoid paying taxes and so on. There is a large problem of revenue collection. That is true. The money is disappearing elsewhere. The people who can't escape are people like myself who work for a semi-public worked for a semi-public organization that had to pay. All my revenue went through the university, so and the university knocked out my PAYE. You see, I paid as I earned at the university, and people who earn income like myself and have to pay, we are the victims of all of this. We are the ones who end up paying the bulk, and that's why we get vexed. Not I, but people get vexed when the doubles man and paying tax and all these kinds of things, because we feel that we are an easy target, and we are. They make us pay for everything. All right,
boss. Going forward from here, because you've expressed concerns that border on conservatism, almost fearful. But when I talk to you off camera, you're daring and brave. So I don't know if this is your on-camera persona that is very conservative, but I'm asking you to tell the people listening to us tonight. I want you to tell them.
I openly and brazenly oppose the United States of America. That's a conservative thing.
No, I want you to tell people looking and listening that there is hope for this country. If we had the political will and the right people in office, Trinidad could be a success story.
That's a truism. And that is true not only for Trinidad and Tobago, it's true for everybody. I am not, in the last election, I did not vote. This one, I'm voting. I'm not voting for PNM or UNC. I mean, I'm telling you that now. All right, everybody knows. I am not going to vote for the two parties who I know will keep running us into trouble. So I share that position. I will be telling people, and I have been telling them not to vote for these two parties. And I ain't voting for any alliance with any one of them either, because the whole thing gets upside down. I am all for.
He called me today. Somebody from the media called me today and said, um, there's a rumor that you've been selected to run for the UNC. I said, but that is crazy. I am the political leader of a party. She said, okay, and there's another rumor that you all are talking about an alliance. I said, no way, never, no how will that ever happen, because the Progressive Empowerment Party is built on one central rail, the end of corruption. And if the PNM and the UNC have facilitated corruption for all of our 58 years, to say that you would align either of them is to make a lie of your central rail and your central policy.
I agree. I agree totally with that. I have no problem, by the way, if you go and form alliance with other people. I mean, I don't know what it is going to eventually look like, but even if 2020 is not successful, I am, in the sense that the PNM and or the UNC come back into office, I am hoping that in the years that are going to come, that the massive failure that will result from these two, and it will, because that's how they operate, it's going to tell people they can no longer continue this way. But you see, this two-party system is like a sickness.
This is, if they didn't learn this by now, poor people going to dance for the water cannons in Trinidad. If they didn't learn it by now, what's coming? You say it. Every intelligent, knowledgeable person says it. What is facing Trinidad is not a tea party. It is not going to be easy. People need to, this is an election year, and politicians are not going to say what needs to be said, but what needs to be said is, what's coming down the line now for Trinidad and Tobago is a fearful situation where our income is practically zero and our expenses and our debt service is through the roof.
No, that's correct. I'm going to have to go. I'm not young like you. I know, and I've been here with you. It's an hour and a half now looking at me.
I'm going to tell you, give me your closing comments. Thanks a lot for being here.
I don't know what comments. I'm going to repeat what you just said, that the economy and the very near future and even the not so near future, it doesn't bode well for us. Why? The main product that we depend on is shrinking away both in price and in quantity. We do not have alternatives to that, because the beauty about oil is not only that it makes us money, it makes us money in the form of foreign exchange. When I say oil, I mean oil and gas. We have to find something very, very fast that will replace that. Otherwise, we are going to be heading, the foreign exchange that we have will disappear. It's already disappearing at a fairly fast rate. It will disappear even faster in the time to come. And if we don't find a way of replacing that, we are going to be in some serious difficulties. We are already in. It's going to be worse.
Professor, thank you very much for joining us again. It's always a pleasure. You stretch my mind when we talk.
Thank you.
Take care, my friend. And that Trinidad and Tobago is where we are. Professor Patrick Watson, Professor Emeritus. I mean, the man is clearly brilliant. He understands things from all sides, and he's had a long and fruitful career. He is the type of person that you have to listen to, even if you find that he leans away from where you might want to lean. That's his prerogative. It is your responsibility to take from what people like him bring to the conversation and make it work for us. He admits that Trinidad and Tobago is in a bad place. He admits that the two-party system has failed us. He admits that the two parties that we've traditionally chosen cannot be the choice going forward, especially for this. He said earlier, and he was not wrong when he said, this is not an election that anybody wants to win, because the next 5 years of Trinidad and Tobago is going to require a massive retooling, a massive redoing, and a massive re-education of the public all at the same time, while the criminals who have used Trinidad to loot it, and we're talking criminals here who sit in high places, high public office, high private sector office, who've combined in unholy alliance to loot this country for 58 years, who've directed the hand of the parliament, who've had laws written to safeguard white-collar criminality in Trinidad and Tobago while calling for more onerous sentences on the people at the bottom rung who are being forced into crime through poverty and lack of options. We cannot continue, we cannot continue, we cannot continue this way. Practice holding your head and bawling. Practice it. Rip your clothes. Pull out your hair. See what that feels like. Because if you put God out your thoughts and vote either for the PNM or the UNC, this next time around, that is your sure and certain future. Until tomorrow, stay safe, Trinidad and Tobago.